Thank you very much. Thank you. We have an agenda before us, but I'm going to propose that we amend it to bring items number 20 and 21 forward. That's the items that deal with the public hearing that we had between 6 and about 6:40 today.
I'll move that.
Okay, so move the agenda with that as an amendment, bringing that forward. All right. So we have an amendment on the agenda. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We have minutes and reports from previous meetings. The first one is the public meeting on February 13th, please.
Move receipt.
Second.
Move adoption?
Sorry, move adoption.
Yep, okay, thanks. Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed, please. The next one is Committee of the Whole.
February
February
19th.
19th, thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed, thank you.
Move
And the-
February 13th.
That's a special council meeting, thank you. And discussion, all in favor, opposed, none opposed. Thank you. We now are going to bring that bylaw forward. So item number 20, this is for third reading and adoption, subject, of course, to the to what we heard here today. And then there's 21 as the third reading and adoption with respect to the bylaw 4703. So let's start first of all with item number 20, which relates to bylaw 4704, please. And this has to do with the revitalization agreement authorization bylaw with respect to 960 Fowl Bay, in which we had a public hearing. So moved, seconded? Yes, thank you. Discussion. Yes, go ahead, please, Councillor Braithwaite.
I do actually have a few questions for the applicant, if that's appropriate at this time.
Staff?
Your Worship, that's a decision of council. However, you do need to be a little bit careful because you've just completed the public hearing, so there's a risk that there would be new information provided to council.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, and if there is new information, then we would have to have a new public hearing. Correct, Mr. Jones?
That's often the case, Your Worship.
I see, it could be worse than that. I see, okay. All right, so I don't see your microphone on again. That means you don't have those questions, thank you. Any discussion as to what we heard and what this bylaw is about? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. And then adoption, please.
Move adoption.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Now, bylaw number 4703, this has to do with the designation of the property.
Move third reading designation of bylaw 4703.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. No discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Adoption, please.
Move adoption.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. I want to just take a moment. Mr. Dewhurst is probably still here, and we can't see. Oh, he's back there. He's in the valley there. And that is, I want to thank you for the work you did on this. I know there's quite a bit of back and forth as the plans changed and improved in relation to the concerns. I think we heard from one person tonight, at least, who mentioned how well you consulted with the neighborhood, took into account their concerns, did some redesign. So we really appreciate that, and I think that that's an ideal and a model way to move forward. So best of luck with that house. We know it's going to be a magnificent restoration, and we're really going to be proud of that. It'll be a marquee on that street. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thanks to the neighbors, too, that for their diligence in working with you. I know sometimes you can't always get what you want. I think the Rolling Stones said that, but you know, sometimes you try to balance it, and I think the neighbors all work very well with you, and they're to be commended for their reasonableness and their approach to this with a very open mind. So thank you. All right. So the next is the ALLAN CASSIDY Awards. We have presentations of the ALLAN CASSIDY Awards. I guess we'll just leave some of the people to shuffle out quietly. Thank you. So this award was named in honor of a former Oak Bay Municipal Councillor, Allan Cassidy, who died a number of years ago while he was in office. His background was in architecture, and he was an immense help to council and helping us understand sometimes complex drawings and renderings, and he certainly assisted council in many ways with his insights into design and architecture, and we certainly appreciate that. And this award recognizes his contribution and honors his memory. And what the award does is it recognizes new buildings, it recognizes renovations that contribute to our neighborhoods and streetscapes. This particular awards were initiated in 2004 and are presented every 2 years. We draw on community involvement in respect to the nominations from local residents, and then they are reviewed and with respect to the new developments and renovations by the Advisory Design Panel, which is a core group of 5 professionals, design professionals, and additional members that participate in the award process. There are 3 categories. One is home renovation, one is new home, and one is commercial, institutional, family, and that's one category. And you'll see here that displayed before us 3 beautiful framed pen and ink drawings, which will be presented to the owners or to their representatives. This year, the artists are Lynn Gordon Finlay, who did 2 of these, and then Carl Peterson, an architect in his own right. And we thank both of them for their artistic efforts and these lovely drawings. And that'll grace the homes that have been awarded this. So the first is 2670 Cranmore, and that's owned by Murray and Shirley Hishy, who I understand are here tonight. Thank you very much, and congratulations. This project, this renovation project, is exemplary and shows the care that can and should be taken in refreshing a home without losing that original character, which is in this case so very Oak Bay, and we thank you for doing that. The landscaping also reflects attention to detail, and the renovation blends with the surrounding neighborhood. So I think a perfect project all around. The designers included in this case Bruce Wilkin Design and Penny Courtnall I understand neither of whom are with you here tonight, but certainly we recognize their efforts. There were two other notable mentions, or honorable mentions, in the same category, and that's 2128 Neal Street, which was a fine update of a 1950s home, and 1354 St. David, where the property has been opened up, and the home and the landscaping contribute more to the street than it previously did. So I'm going to ask Murray and Shirley Hishy to come forward, and I will present the photo. The lovely drawing to them. Thank you. Is this the one here? I can't see it from the back.
Yes, it is, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the great work you did. There we go. And this will be yours to hang proudly. And we just have to have a look here. Would you like to say a few words? It's really up to you.
Well, I would just, he asked if I'd like to say a few words. And the key thing for us is Penny Courtnall. We worked a lot with her after. She did all of the work, but we had a lot of discussions with her, and she put money on things you can't see. I mean, this was a project that was very near and dear to her heart. So as far as I'm concerned, the award really belongs to Penny Courtnall.
And that's the next one. The next award is the New Home Category Award, 39 McQuina. This is owned by Ian and Louise Scott, who I understand will not be here tonight or unable to attend. It was actually the previous owners who built the house, and David and Karen Wilson. This home was built in 2014 and selected for its good overall design. The innovative use of materials incorporating Scandinavian design, which is near and dear to my Danish heart, elements work well with the house, and it sits on a waterfront property in the rocky BC coastal setting. So, and certainly the landscaping goes well together with the design. The architect of the home is Dennis Moore of D.H. Moore Architect, who will be accepting the award on behalf of the owners. There's honorable mentions that go to two other homes, one at 3260 Exeter, for its visual prominence and open landscaping, and the other one at 2970 Beach Drive for its design in a natural setting with good modernist principles and West Coast design. So thanks to everyone who entered, and if Mr. Moore could come forward. Stand here and look at the cameras for a bit. Okay. And this is the okay news. You have to smile a little more. Thanks a lot.
I'd just like to say thank you to Oak Bay for recognizing the home. I think it's commendable, I guess, to the old part of the neighborhood to recognize a more modern home. And the challenge for me was to fit that modern home and those modern ideas into that wonderful community down in Harling Point. So I hope it's succeeded. I think it's succeeded. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next category is 1510 Clive Drive, the Clive Apartments, a very short distance from here. And the owner, I understand, who will be represented by Joe Brunwald. Is he here? Mr. Grunwald, welcome. This project was built in 2015. The building is selected for an award as an excellent example of building with high level of design, sympathetic landscaping, and preservation of the surrounding residential buildings. And the designer of the home is CASSIDY, architects who are doing a lot throughout the CRD, and in fact they won a Home Builders Award for this building also. So honorable mentions also go to the Oak Bay Beach Hotel, particularly for its attention to massing and materials. So congratulations, Mr. Brunwald, on behalf of the owners. We want to capture this for posterity.
It's a pleasure to receive the award. I've been managing the building since Labor Day weekend. It's a comfortable, solid building, 17 tenants really enjoy it, and a beautiful place to live. Thank you. That's very generous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to hand out those awards, and they're so meaningful, and it's a way to a wonderful way to honor our late colleague Allan Cassidy, who himself had certainly an impact on the architecture in many places throughout the CRD. In fact, I think he helped keep the fire hall standing should there be an earthquake. He designed the inside kind of skeleton that will withstand an earthquake should one, or when one comes, I guess is more appropriate. I have I just have two remarks. One is a remark I could and should have made quite some time ago, and that's to acknowledge the local government program services, essentially UBCM and the British Columbia government, who recently informed us that we would be getting a $21,635 as part of a funding grant for the mobilization of emergency services. And so we're grateful to them and for this award. I know we have our emergency program liaison with us here, Councillor Zelka. So all of these are very much welcome, and I wanted to take the moment to recognize that we do benefit from provincial and federal funding of this nature, so thank you. The second one, an announcement or remark, has to do with I attended today at the Songhees Nations building, just down on, right next to the, what's that called? The steamship terminal, which they now have the first floor. And we were invited there, all council, all members of the CRD, mayors and council were invited. Myself was there as well as Councillor Murdoch. And that was for an announcement, and a very important announcement. They invited us to come together from across the CRD to join the Lekwungen-speaking people in what they're calling Ninsamot, which is the indigenous games that they hope, the North American indigenous games, which they hope to bring to Victoria in 2020. It's a tall order. They're in competition with Ottawa, Halifax, and Winnipeg. If we are able to convince the main organizers to come to Victoria, it will be a very significant economic assist. Some 40 plus million is estimated, some 5,000 participants from across North America, and it'll be a wonderful way to celebrate with the Lekwungen peoples, who we've been building bridges with over the last number of years, and we certainly do everything we can to continue that relationship, build those bridges, and support them. So It will be my intention later on today under new business to put suggest a motion that we support their application, which has to be done by mid-March. And I did circulate a letter we just received this afternoon while we were actually in session from Chief Sam, who says, we ask you to stand with us in our bid to host the 2020 North American Indigenous Games, Nensamat. In our language, this means together we are one. And so the motion that I'll propose later is in order to support Chief Sam, Songhees, and the Lekwungen speaking people. So thank you very much. Those are my remarks. Next, we have the public participation period, a 20-minute period of time where we allow speakers up to 3 minutes to address us on issues that focus on Oak Bay or have some kind of connection to Oak Bay. We will ask you to state your name and your municipality and also to print your name and the municipality just there on the speaker sheets at the podium. Keep your remarks brief, not to exceed 3 minutes, please. I will time them. When I say welcome, I'll start a 3-minute timer. And please address all your comments through me, please. Now, you should also note that you are being video recorded, so you should be as close to that microphone as possible. I see way more than 20 minutes worth of speakers. Let me just say this, that I suspect a lot of you came to address the issue of secondary suites. That motion, while it's on tonight, will not be voted on tonight. And my understanding from consulting with Councillor Ney is that it will await a time when we have all 7 councillors here. So likely that will be on March the 6th. So that's just so you all know that. He's away tonight. And so keep that in mind. So I'm going to start. We start at 7:22. Thank you.
I am Pat Wilson. I live in South Oak Bay. And I actually,
Welcome.
Thank you. I actually came because of heritage, and then to get my thoughts together, I pulled out the survey from the Oak Bay, the OCP. And I look at it, and the first item on housing policies was 84% positive response about keeping our character and heritage homes. Well, we have secondary suites on this too. That's, I think, the second or third item down on this list. I hear you're looking at that, not this meeting, but another meeting. I think you should be combining these issues that came out in that survey and not doing them singularly. But back to the 84% retention of these older homes. We have 3 wonderful families here tonight that have made their own personal efforts to retain their heritage homes. 1208 Oliver. I'm trying to get it all straight. I don't have my glasses on the top of my head here. 1526 Beach and 799 Linkleus. And Linkleus even designated their land to allow green space. And I just want to give my personal thanks. I got to tour these homes, look at the way they were dressed out, and these are people who love their homes. And I just wanted to give my personal thank you to all 3 families for doing this, and I think they deserve a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Yes, indeed. We'll have more to say about those people a little later. They're on the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Hazel. Diane McCarroll, Oak Bay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I understand there's definitely pressures for more housing, affordable housing within Oak Bay, and I understand that that's something that you guys have to definitely deal with. I don't think it's a standalone solution in suites. I think it's a bigger issue. Couple concerns: parking. Parking's already a challenge, particularly South Oak Bay. If you bring in secondary suites, how are you going to manage parking? Is the owner of the home going to be required to have space on their private property? Like, what does that look like? Those roads are difficult to maneuver and it's a little bit sketchy at times, so it's something you should consider. Increased individuals living in the house is another question. The sewage issue, can our infrastructure handle having more people in those homes? Maybe 2, 3, 4 people in a basement suite, we're not sure. So I think that needs to be looked at. I also feel that with the financial benefits that the homeowner is going to have, how is that going to reflect on the district? Is there going to be an increase in their taxes to offset the additional needs that they will have with our infrastructure, our first responders, whatever that may be? Like I said, while I do believe that there is a change needed, I think you need a long-term housing strategy plan. And I think that's maybe something that needs to wait till after the next election. The group that builds that plan needs to love that plan and want to live with that plan. And the faces around this table might change. And so I think whoever builds that plan needs to be here for the long run. And then the last question that I would sort of bring up is, what does the safety protocols look like? What's the inspection going to look like? Are there going to be additional inspections to ensure that the people living in those secondary suites are safe? Like single exit, what if there's a reason they can't get out that exit? What's our solution to that? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, even under time.
I'm impressed.
Just talk fast, you'll be fine.
Good evening. My name's Rick Lee. You all
Welcome.
Thank you. You all received an email from me on Friday expressing my views, and I brought a copy along tonight for the record if you'd like it. I'm here tonight to ask you to turn down Councillor Nay's resolution on secondary suites. I know it's not being held tonight. But anyway, secondary suites and Airbnbs are nothing short of small-scale developments engaged in the rental business. This resolution is too broad and falls badly short on specifics. Further direct consideration by Council bypasses the public's normal right to speak at a committee of the whole. We are, in effect, being excluded from commenting on this resolution. That's why I'm here tonight. Remember, nearly 50% of Oak Bay residents in the original survey did not want secondary suites. This community is badly rifted. It's divided right down the middle. No effort is being made to bridge that rift. You cannot forge ahead as if you had carte blanche. You don't. The resolution is entitled Secondary Suite Implantation in Oak Bay. If you read the title, implantation means to insert, lodge, or embed. This is obviously what the resolution aims to do, if not by decree, then by stealth. This resolution should not be about implantation or even implementation. If anything, it should be about due diligence and nothing more. Remember, Oak Bay was only asked to voice an uninformed opinion on secondary suites. Any reasonable person would expect the concept to be explored, studies to be conducted to identify the financial, social costs and impacts on the community. Excuse me. Also, how those secondary suites will be mitigated and funded. Once studies are completed, this community must revisit the question and then only talk about implementation. Do we really want secondary suites legalized? How many, where, and to what standards? What fees are to be paid? The list goes on and on and on. The resolution talks of Oak Bay being out of step with the CRD strategy. Well, thank you. We can think for ourselves. There's good reasons. Oak Bay is the model community it is. Let's work to keep it that way. Statistics Canada says there are 2,500 apartments already in Oak Bay. How many more do you want? What will be the limits? Will every house be converted? How are you going to police it? This policy could destroy the very nature of Oak Bay.
Could you wrap it up, please, sir?
Sure. Just for the record, so you don't think I'm a complainer, I'm willing to serve in any committee you want to help formulate and specify the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm going to ask you to, just ask you to hold off there. there's two sides to the story, and if you're clapping for one side, the other might feel intimidated. I'm sure that's not your intention. Next speaker, please. Oh, sorry, just go ahead. Sorry.
Marion Cumming and Sunny Lane.
Yes,
here in
welcome,
Oak
Ms.
Bay.
Cumming.
I'll try to represent neighborhood concerns because a number of my neighbors are absent, out of town, or have prior commitments. It's time to seriously implement major objectives of our OCP, such as, quote, to retain existing trees, other vegetation, natural features, and topography where possible, end of quote. We're grateful to Councillors Eric Zelka and Kevin Murdoch and others and staff for examining these recent issues of concern about steep slopes. Recent developments such as 207 Sunny Lane, which cleared a site from lot line to lot line and hollowed out a cliffside, have had unfortunate consequences, such as flooding as neighboring lots and possible destabilization. Nearby, 383 King George Terrace on the coast, a treed and vegetated natural buffer alongside the beach, was replaced by massive terraced concrete buttresses, not a more natural form of mitigation with native trees and plants that it had apparently been intended by Oak Bay. Some recommendations follow. Neighbors propose ending the current double standard and call for an appropriate duty to consult those living nearby as applicable to new construction, not only to interior renovations. Procedural fairness should follow rather than the current confidentiality. Will Council please encourage staff to emulate aspects of North Vancouver's slope hazard development permit? For example, and I'm quoting here, a minimum 10-meter buffer from the top or base of any steep slope should be maintained free of development. And stepped and articulated buildings that integrate and reflect the natural site contours and slope conditions should be utilized, and large unbroken building masses that are unsuitable for slope conditions should be avoided. My house has sat respectfully for almost a century on a rocky cliffside outcropping that Dr. Chris Yorath, the geologist, commented has been there for about 42 million years. Consulting engineers and geologists should be paid for by the owner, but acknowledged as independent. I understand that Saanich has such a system. And can performance bonds be more effectively implemented? Another question for staff, please.
Could you wrap that up, please, the last sentence? Thank you.
It's been suggested that results-oriented standards could require a 2-year period before the surety bond would be released upon the engineer's certification.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And, sir, did you want to write her name?
Esther Patterson, Woodlawn Crescent.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Just a quick disclaimer, because I do want to talk about secondary suites, but everybody asked me this. I do not have a dormant suite, I do not plan to have a suite, and I don't own any rental property. I do support greater diversity of housing options in Oak Bay. So I'm in favor of those things. But I also support district staff who I know are very busy working, undertaking, implementing new financial software to replace a no longer supported version. That's a must-do. And working on reserve funds and asset management as a basis to long-term planning and better decision-making, the foundation by which we will make all of our decisions. I thank Councillor Ney for drawing attention to the report out of UBCM, A Home for Everyone, if only, but particularly because it's a very scathing report in stating that the governments, federal, provincial, and local, have failed to fully gauge the magnitude of this issue as it has built up over time, and that we need comprehensive, evidence-based recommendations and new taxation or other management tools to discourage short-term rentals and speculation. I also agree with this UBCM report that this is a huge task, compiling data, considering infrastructure, safety, finance, and tax implications, and that regulations or other compliance tools are needed to evolve quickly to deal with the conditions we find ourselves in. Not so much in Oak Bay, because we have been slower than the rest of the municipalities. So I don't support this resolution in the form that it is in today, because I feel it delegates ill-defined implementation to under-resourced staff that we have right now. My suggestion would be that council provide a framework for policy on secondary suites or other issues that could be included, capturing critical elements or expectations, including longer-term budgeting and tax implications for residents. I also note that the Chief Administrative Officer is not in the room tonight, so had this been on, I would have also been asking that it perhaps be tabled until that person, who will be a key figure in implementing anything we decide to do, is on hand to be able to speak to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have the acting Chief Administrative Officer in the room tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Mears, Oak Bay, South
Welcome.
Oak Bay.
Talking to the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted, before I start, I have my own stopwatch. Now, I know you have yours calibrated, but I don't want, I want to get this in, so I'm going to start mine when you start yours.
I said welcome, but I'm going to start again because you may not have heard me.
Okay, thanks. So you can start again when?
So, welcome.
Okay, thank you. As reported in many council reports and discussions, and in the OCP, secondary suite legalization is a very controversial issue and decisions for residents of Oak Bay. Considerable staff time and taxpayer expenditures have already been used for a residential infill strategy. Infill includes suites. The strategy included a number of neighborhood meetings and surveys. After the first one-day sessions, the residential infill strategy and all intended future community consultations were abruptly canceled without notice or explanation. The official community plan survey found that resident acceptance for secondary suite legalization was inconclusive and called for another survey on suites. The official community plan states a secondary suite process after consultation with the public has two actions. One identified as a major project to amend zoning and parking bylaws, home-based businesses, etc. This has a 1 to 3 year phase-in period. And two, it will take a concurrent 1 to 3 year process to develop a regulatory framework and policy to permit secondary suites. The multi-year phasing in timeline presumably is to ensure an adequate process that includes public consultation and a well-planned, well-funded regulatory system. Senior staff, verbally and in reports, have explained a secondary suite process has not started yet, and at this time, staff cannot take on a major project without jeopardizing all of the council priority work underway. For example, implementing an asset management plan and a development cost charge schedule. The appropriate place for residents to provide input to Council Nay's neighborhood densification resolution would be at a community of the whole meeting or at a town hall meeting. And that's explained here because we've got a whole lineup of people that aren't going to get to talk. With such a short timeline, 7 months until the next election, reassigning the required staff time and financial resources and developing Council 215 priority for an overall housing plan and providing the public with information and consultation opportunities. Therefore, given this information, and as the OCP survey found, the community viewpoint on legalizing suites has not been determined, and with the first community infill consultation being abruptly canceled, with all due respect, it would be irresponsible for Council to move forward at this time. I think I'm okay by a couple of seconds, and
Perfect.
and
Thank you.
if you cut me off, I was going to withdraw the mutual the
Thank
due
you.
respect part.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And at my calculation, this is the last speaker. Thank you very much.
So my name's Andrew Stinson, and I do live in Oak Bay. Am I going to be welcomed, or?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Andrew. No, I wasn't going to give you the rest of the night, no.
Okay.
Don't
it's-
worry about that. Anyways, but you will be the last speaker, just
Okay.
so people know, because we're reached our limit now. We're actually going to go over it with you.
I'll try to
Welcome.
Thank you. I'd actually like to begin with a quote that I heard last week, and it was in regards to an application that was up at Committee of the Whole. And it was the application had, it was an apartment building that was adding additional units, but without doing any more building. And one of the councillors said that they supported it because it added additional density within the footprint. And now, while I do not want to put words into Councillor Braithwaite's mouth, I believe that this can be expanded and thought to be in relation to secondary suites as well. And so, moving on to talking about secondary suites, I'm going to talk about consultations because that's come up, but I also want to talk about why I don't think the status quo is tenable. So on consultations, I actually want to read out what the resolution is. It's staff be directed to prepare a report that outlines a project work plan, including timelines, next steps, and lead staff, with the stated goals of creating a public engagement plan to develop and implement policy, regulations, and bylaws for secondary suites in Oak Bay. This does not sound like council's trying to ram it through in a quick 4-3 vote. It actually sounds like this will come back to a committee of the whole at some point, so we could have that longer discussion in a more informal setting without the lines of people that have now vanished behind me. So my fear is that this call for further consultations, or that something else needs to be done first, is just an attempt to delay it. And I've been watching council for 6 years now, and I've seen delay happen on this time and time again. So I do know that there are some people that do not want secondary suites to be legalized. And while I disagree with them, it does bring up a valid question. Why should we change the status quo? Because if you want to change the status quo, you need to make an argument for why to do it. And we all know in Oak Bay that there are lots of suites. And if the whole purpose of suites is to bring in money, then why change it? And I believe that suites are not just for that. I believe that suites are not just to bring in income, but to bring in more people into our community, to provide different housing options for different people. And with the status quo, the problem is that the people that live in those illegal suites are not really part of this community. They live in this illegal dwelling. They could be kicked out because a neighbor does not like them for a real reason or an imagined one. How can we expect people like that to living in this quasi-legal zone to engage in our community? Because that is the purpose. It is not just to bring in money, to bring in more people. And I can speak from experience because I live in my parents' basement, which that is the only way I can live in my community that I grew up in. And I've heard it in the election. I heard it At times I've spoken to council, and I assume people are thinking this right now, that I am not a legitimate member of this community because I do not live in a legal housing situation. And so that is why I think this should be made a priority. We can't delay it any further. It's been on the agenda time and time again, as speakers have mentioned, and I don't think we should be delaying it any further. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much. Yeah, I've asked him not to clap before, but Mr. Stinson, you are legitimate. Don't you worry about that. So thank you very much. Thanks everyone for coming to speak to us. As I mentioned, it is my anticipation, after having consulted with Councillor Ney, that this motion will come back when there's 7 members of council. All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on to communications, but why don't we just quietly wait till people shuffle out, because there's going to be some noise associated with that. I am going to encourage you to speak outside, and then maybe the last person to leave can kind of close the door behind them, so it's not, we don't get the noise back in here. Thank you. All right. Right. Thank you. All right, I think, right. So we're now back to item number 6, which is the Oak Bay Tea Party Parade occupancy request and request for a financial assistant. Number 6.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself as
Thank
I'm
you.
a member of the Society Board.
Thank you very much.
Unless there's nobody here to speak on it, then I'll speak on it. I don't know if there's anybody here to speak on it, so...
Well, I think there'll probably be a motion, so I think it's wise to recuse. Yep, thank you. We do have a report from our staff, from our Deputy Director of Corporate Services. And just before we go on, I should introduce Ms. Sonia Santa Rosa, which I'd meant to do at the top. As we know, Ms. Mara Jones up and moved to Nelson to start a new life out there with her family. We wished her well, and Ms. Santa Rosa, who's been at the CRD for many years, up until recently, has agreed to come and pinch hit while we're waiting the new appointment, which will be sometime in March, later on in March. So in the meantime, Ms. Santa Rosa, welcome aboard. I know you filled in before when Mr. Jones was off for a bit. So welcome back, and we thank you for joining us. I know you have a wealth of experience at the CRD. I'd like to think things are calmer here than at the CRD, so you should get on just fine. But I take it this isn't your handiwork. This report was prior to that. So there is in past years, we've not only acceded to the request for the street, for the occupancy, but also provided a grant. So should we wish to do so, there is a suggested motion.
Move permission be given to the Oak Bay Tea Party for occupancy and a grant of $7,000 to be provided.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Yes, go ahead, please.
This is a little ancillary to the actual main motion, but I thought I would raise this because I was thinking about this some time ago, and this seems an opportune time. I'm thinking that we've had a number of sort of red tape reduction options provided by staff to council, and one of the ones that I think we could possibly do is to I guess bifurcate our granting process, so we have more of an operational grant model where we maybe do that once every 4 years, so people can apply once, right, lay it out and sort of have a regular and assured funding model for their sort of operation for something like the Tea Party that we tend to fund on an annual basis. Would reduce the effort on the applicant's side You can do it once every 4 years and do it. Other applications could come in, but they could co-terminate. And then we could deal with it from an estimates process on an annual basis on more of a capital project basis. So if people have projects, they need some specific help on a one-off basis, then we can consider those on an annual basis. So I don't think we need a motion or anything. I just thought I'd throw it out there as a possibility that when these things come forward in future.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Jones, please.
Your Worship, that is on our list, and what we'd be looking at are those events in the community that are regularly held, and we'd bring those forward to council and say, these things are long-time community events, always approved by council, and so why don't we give the applicants the certainty and have council then approve those, how many years, that would be up to you, but approve those in advance.
Okay, we look forward to you bringing that forward, Mr. Jones. Thank you very much. So we have a motion on the floor. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. The next has to do with the election coming up in October 20th. We've got a request from CAOB, the Community Association of Oak Bay, and I see I think it's the president, the chair. I thought I saw him walk in. Oh, way back there. There you are. Mr. Nichols is here, and the request is to essentially waive the fee for that and instead use one of our municipal free uses of the Dave Dunnett Theatre for the purpose of a debate amongst candidates scheduled for 11th of October, and it has been confirmed that the theatre is available by the theatre manager. He's confirmed that. So should council wish, there's a proposed motion.
I'd move the request that the Community Association use the District of Bay's free rental of the Dave Dunnett Theatre for all candidates meeting on Thursday, October 11th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Just go ahead, please.
George, just one quick thing I wanted to point out on here. The motion as it's laid out is laid out for Thursday, October 11th. If this election, the dates haven't been set yet, but if this election follows the pattern set in previous municipal elections, the elections are held on the day, then there's two early polls, which are quite well attended in Oak Bay. One is usually 7 days and one 10 days in front of the election. So the 11th, as stated here by the Community Association, is actually the day after the first early poll. And I think that might not be a good idea. I think it'd be good to have all the candidates meetings before people start voting, especially given how well they do it. So I was going to suggest that perhaps we amend this to say be approved subject to a suitable date prior to the advanced poll dates be found. Because I'm a little worried that we're approving a specific date here that wouldn't actually work very well. The wording would just be to change the end of it to that, Dave Dunnett Theatre for all candidates meeting be approved subject to a suitable date prior to the advanced poll dates be found.
I'll second.
Okay. So that's an amendment to the current wording.
It just removes the specificity of November.
Okay. That doesn't prevent it from being on the 11th.
It doesn't, but hopefully we'll get this before the voting days.
Okay. Mr. Nichols, I know I didn't call upon you before to say anything. Do you have any comments on this one, or you'll be the one carrying the organizational ball? So you've heard it here. Okay. Yes. If it passes, okay. Discussion on the amendment? No. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Yes, on the main motion.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to the Community Association of Oak Bay for bringing this forward. I think it's a good idea. Actually, I hadn't thought about the advanced polls being put on, but here's the only thing that I have a little bit of a concern about, and that is that I worry that other groups that might want to also put on an all candidates meeting, that are other organized groups like the Community Association of Oak Bay, that if they want to come forward and put on a meeting, that they might have an expectation that we as a municipality might cover the fees for their rental as well. So I just want to make sure that we have a good balance there. So if, for example, the North Henderson Association came to us and said they wanted to put on a community all candidates meeting and they wanted to rent Monterey Center and they would like us to waive the fee, I just wonder how we would stand on that.
Well, I think we would deal with that when it comes. looking at,
I just want us to be seen as
Yeah.
being fair, that's all.
yep, and then if there is another request, we'll have to see what fairness means at that time, see what the request is. So, I mean, I don't think we can anticipate or make a broad sweeping policy at this point. That's my only concern, Mr. Jones.
Sorry, Your Worship, I just want to be clear so that when this is finished, so I think what I heard is that we'll talk to the community association about the feasibility of another date. However, if that other date, if we can't find another date, that October 11th would still be something that council would go ahead with.
Yes, I think that's quite clear. The concern raised by Councillor Braithwaite is what happens if Community Association number 2 comes forward, and how would we deal with them? But we don't know at this point where, when, and how that they are. So is it best to have a written policy in advance, or just wait till if there is another application?
Your Worship, the reason these are in front of you is because this is not a decision staff are going to make, and we're going to throw these in your lap.
Okay.
So if we get another request, they'll be in front of you.
It'll come back. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
I just would like to my comment on that, I think it should be, have our policy fairly clear. I would consider this that we're essentially establishing a policy that we're paying for these things. So I think if community wants to get together and hold events, then we're by making this decision, and I agree with it, is that it's to the community benefit to have all candidates meetings, obviously. And so it's a small amount of money to fund rentals of this nature. So I think it's there. And yes, I don't think we're choosing the date, but I don't think, the way the wording is very clear that it's not setting any contingency on the dates.
Okay. We have a motion that's been amended before us. Further questions or discussion? Go ahead, please, Councillor Kirby.
I just wanted to say thank you to the Community Association for taking this effort, and they've done this for a number of elections now, and I think it's a great benefit to the community to have an opportunity to hear from all the candidates, and how nice that we're finally able to use our new Dave Dunnett Theatre, and I know that we didn't use all of our free opportunities last year. So this is a great use of our amenity that we as a community paid for. So I'm pleased to support the motion.
Thank you very much. And I think I just noticed in the motion itself, it should probably, the formal name is Dave Dunnett Community Theatre, as a continuing reminder that Oak Bay contributed $1 million to the building of it. So it's always good to insert that word in there. Which was a compromise word, because I'd suggested we be called the Municipal Theatre because of our amazing contribution. Anyway, any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much, and thanks to the Community Association and Mr. Nichols. Thank you. Now, we have the Mayor's Task Force on Public Engagement. Councillor Ney has put together a report which is before us, setting out the citizen members, the council liaison, some of the work that's been going on, and at the end of the page 2 there is a request for funding. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us a background, Councillor Ney, on this as an issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Mayor's Task Force on Public Engagement has wanted to provide council with an update. I just want to first thank members of the committee, to Michelle, Councillor Kirby, and Councillor Zelka, the liaisons, as well as our committee members. They've been a very active and committed, savvy group of people, and we've had I think done some very good work in a short space of time. And we've had good discussions. People worked at doing some good research for us and helped design a preliminary forum. So thank you to the committee members. It's really nice working with you, and it's very productive. We have had so far 3 meetings, and we've developed a mandate, which is there in the report. And together we've made a proposal for 2 engagement forums, public forums, and the committee together has designed
some objectives and what the two forums will be. Basically, the two forums will be successive building on one another, starting with some education about mandatory, non-mandatory engagement practices, and then identify and prioritizing some of the identified engagement activities in the report that we were working from. And then on the second forum, we'll work on a jurisdictional scan of some engagement best practices, and then we'll drill down deeper into a few of the activities that have been identified as priorities. And then a report will be written up. We proposed some tentative dates and provided council with some of the scope of activities that will be required as we consider engaging a consultant to facilitate the process. And we've made an estimate number of hours and a budget number.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see if there's any questions from council regarding the report. And if not, I'm going to entertain a motion. Do you have a question, Councillor Murdoch? Go ahead, please.
I do. Thank you, through Chair. I just want to clarify in my mind, the process here is basically going to use, as it laid out here, that the mandate says conduct public consultation forums on the draft Mayor's Task Force on Engagement report. So this is the last report that came forward at the end of 2017. Is that correct? I guess, is there any concerns there? I mean, that report's come back to council a couple of times, and it wasn't approved or anything by council. There's quite a few concerns raised about it in terms of its lack of detail and so forth. So I have a pretty significant concern about whether or not that's an adequate document to kind of talk to, and it sort of isn't finished yet. So is there any thought on the part of the engagement group to kind of finish that report in a way that kind of allows a more sort of fulsome discussion on these?
Well, I can speak to it, but I can also let my colleagues speak to this as well. The idea is to take the report. It is true, council didn't receive, it was received but not approved. But the idea is to take it to the public, for the public to have some input around what the activities, to give them an opportunity to prioritize and identify activities that are relevant to this community. My council colleagues may want to add.
Councillor Zelko, please.
Thank you very much, Chair.
And who's also a member of the
appreciate
committee.
that.
Yep.
I would characterize it for Councillor Murdoch as essentially a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Sort of like to finish it ahead of time might be prescriptive, as opposed to describing, shall we say, a trial balloon, something for people to at least start a discussion. So it's like a chicken and egg. It's hard to know which one to put first.
Thank you. Councillor Kerber, did you want to add anything? You're also
Yeah,
a member of the committee, or task force, I should
say that I think it's this is going to help. It gives us something to jump off from. It gives us a starting point for discussion, and it will give people a chance something to get through the workshops. And these are fairly long workshops to give them a chance to have some idea of what we're talking about and where we want to head, and then they can also see the gaps and make offer suggestions of where they see that we are missing elements. I think it's hard to start from scratch, and so this is a great place to start from, and it'll give us something to work from as a community, and it also, when we're starting within the first forum, with getting everybody up to speed and understanding the process, what is mandatory, what is not mandatory as far as public engagement goes, because I think we have learned, even from just the discussion this evening, of people's misunderstanding of public process and public engagement. There's a lot of fear that we can circumvent mandatory processes, but we don't, and we can't. And so the first forum would be to educate people and get everybody up to the same level, and then the next one would be an opportunity for people to fill in the gaps of where they see missing elements, where they think we could do better on public engagement. But I don't think we can start without anything. We have to start with something.
Thank you very much.
One last
Carry
follow-up,
on,
if you don't
Councillor
mind.
Murdoch. Sure.
I guess this has been like a 2.5-year process to get to this point. So I'm trying to just, way back when Councillor Zelka first brought this forward, there was I thought a pretty laudable goal there. There was a very detailed, close to 50-page report on community engagement with appendices and details and options for, priorities of matrix of engagement and so forth. I'm assuming that the working group is because that was the original starting point, was to take that and look at it, just do kind of a refresh of it, take all those points, look at where we've met them, look at where we haven't, and then possibly find a couple of net new options and so forth attached to that to see if we can improve on that. This seems to sort of drifted away from that original goal. From that, granted, it's a long time ago now, but I'm not entirely sure if that's still part of this plan or if that is just entirely dropped and it's just looking at what was sort of this report and then looking at this on a more sort of broad scale without the structure.
Chair of the task force?
The mandate that we've identified here in response to the council meeting previously is to provide a final report that identifies framework, practice guidelines, and non-monetary engagement activities for Oak Bay. And we're going to do that by engaging with the community so they have some input, have the report written up and bring back for approval to council.
Okay. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing this forward. I'm wondering, number one, was there meant to be 3 blank pages in there? Because I was a little bit confused. I thought maybe there was something else in the... No, it's just the first 2 pages? Okay. I'm having difficulty with this, I have to be honest. And that's because I think back to last September when I had a motion that was on the floor that was approved that said that staff be directed to arrange a date and venue in November to hold a town hall meeting, and be it further resolved that the Community Engagement Task Force be invited to bring for consideration at the next Committee of the Whole any recommendation they feel may improve that meeting's effectiveness. Then town hall was replaced with the words public forum, and the words or as soon as possible were inserted after November. And then the follow-up report came back, and here we are now. So I know we have certain legislative restrictions that limit us, and we can only debate certain things in public as a group. But for goodness sake, there's other municipalities like the City of Victoria and Saanich that are able to do this without spending $10,000 on consultation. I can't believe that we're even considering doing that when all it seems to me that we need to do is choose a topic, have a meeting, let the public come and have some participation in there, and just give them that opportunity to have some input. That's what I think our community wants. That's what I think we should. I don't think we should consult to consult and spend $10,000 on it at the same time. So I have real difficulty with that. All I'm asking is that we have what some people have already had on their own, which is basically town hall meetings. And let's have it as a group. Let's do it where public can come and sit down and ask us questions, tell us what they think on a certain subject. We can use secondary suites as our first subject if we choose to. It's not going to cost us $10,000. I don't think we need to spend $10,000 on a consultant to do that. So unfortunately, I can't support, again, this motion because I don't feel that this is the direction that we should be going as a council.
Okay, I haven't heard a motion yet. Is my right, staff? There hasn't been a
I'll
formal
make
motion.
a motion to receive the report and the funds of up to $10,000.
Okay, so
Second.
Receive the report and approve the expenditure of up to $10,000. Moved and seconded. Now we have something to focus on. I think you already, I suspect, Councillor Braithwaite, that's the anticipated motion that you were thinking about. Councillor Kirby, please.
Well, I understand that it seems odd to spend up to $10,000 to consult. I know for a fact that those other municipalities, Victoria and Saanich, spend much more than that on their public engagement processes and have a communication staff larger than our entire staff. So they spend a much larger portion of their budget on communication and on engagement processes. We don't have that kind of budget, and that's why we have to spend this sum of money in order to come up with a strategy, in order to be able to do these projects in the future from now on as we move forward with implementation of our OCP. Secondary suites is just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be several other zoning amendments that are going to need to take place, and we want to make sure that we can approach those issues in a way that will suit the public so that everybody feels satisfied, because not everybody wants a town hall meeting. A lot of people feel uncomfortable with that, and as we discussed in our committee, a lot of people don't want a town hall meeting. They want other options. And where the City of Victoria and the City of District of Saanich have much, 10 times our budget, are able to provide online options. They're able to provide a huge smorgasbord of different ways to engage with their municipal government. We can't provide that at this time. And so we're seeking input and ideas from a specialist, from a consultant that knows this business inside and out and has done it all across the country and understands the size and budget that we're dealing with, the size of the community, and the age of our community, the demographics, and the education level of our community. They will look at all of those things and come up with really good ideas, but we will also have 2 excellent meetings, 2.5-hour workshops where we sit down with the community and we all get to the same level of understanding of our mandatory and non-mandatory processes, and then we become, we can engage on the idea of how do we want to spend our money going forward? Do we want to have a communications staff of 40 to, manage the OCP processes going forward? Probably not. But, what will it take? How much will it cost? We have no idea. How much would it cost to have town hall meetings regularly on every subject? Because it would take overtime for our staff to do those kinds of things, and it would be an exhausting process for our small staff to do those kinds of processes, I think. But we don't know that until we have the report in front of us and until we've worked with the community in these workshops. So I think this is a really, I think you by saying that it's just spending money for almost no purpose, I think that minimizes the role of this. It's very important. We need to know how we're going to engage the community and whether it will cost us more than we can afford to do online engagement and that kind of thing.
Thank you. Anybody else?
If I might.
Councillor Braithwaite, go ahead.
I think that there's a couple of things there. Number one, you can't even tell me how many people can be in a workshop. Is it 20 people, 40 people, 60 people, 100 people? How do you get a very good cross-section of the community in the workshop? So that's one thing. And I have to go back to the motion that has not been followed through on, and that's the one from September 18th, 2017, where we would direct staff to hold a town hall meeting in November, and we still haven't done that, and I think that's probably enough.
Yeah, I think there were some extra words added after the November thing, though, to be fair. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion?
I guess I'll just say one more thing, but
Councillor Ney.
thank you. It is true. Engaging a community about different topics and policies and programming is not cheap, but it is necessary, as you know. The public's expectation is high to be involved and have a say in how they are governed. And this is an opportunity here to allow the community to have input in identifying different kinds of activities that they want to be engaged in, what that looks like, and for them to prioritize that. And we have not done that in this community, and my read on that is that that's what the community would like to be engaged with. So, and that's what this process is about.
If I can just say one more thing. The Community Association of Oak Bay is doing it, and they're doing it very well. They're engaging the community. Why can't we do exactly the same thing?
Okay. Councillor Murdoch, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I, my issue with this is spending the $10,000. I think it's a lot of money for our community to spend. I also I guess I have this. I see former Councillor Green is in the audience, and she was her and I were co-chairs of the original community engagement working group. And, that working group sat together for, I think it was about 8 weeks, and we had staff support. We had the guidance on what was mandatory, not mandatory, feasible, not feasible. We had input on what the impacts of staff would be, and that group, a bunch of reasonable people with some staff assistance put together a pretty substantive report in terms of identifying it, and it was tailored very much to the community of Oak Bay. It was done in far more than 45 to 70 hours. There's a lot more work than that put into it, but the net result of it was that it was very specific to our community and what we were able to do. It identified a large number of things that we thought would be useful, like webcasting, that we recognized were not possible at the time, but were later brought in when the technology was available and the cost came down. So I have a very big issue with this. We have one example, I think, of a well put together group and task of coming forward with a meaningful thing, and then we have this, which is, I grant, it's a brilliant way to get approval. I guess you have 3 councillors and the mayor on the mayor's task force. You get 4 or 7. It's going to be hard to vote this down, but I can't support the $10,000. It's not a huge amount of money, but it is outside of the estimates process. We're not considering it as part of our overall budget costs, and to this point, we haven't even there's been no staff input onto this as an option or a viability or anything else. It's just been kind of drifting around at arm's length from staff. I think at least we do is if we want to go forward down this path, that perhaps we send it back and have some staff input on it. Because as it is right now, just moving forward, I can't tell you, sitting in that room, how many times we sat down with, and staff was able to raise issues very specific to the inner workings of Oak Bay in terms of how we actually go about everything from processing applications and the time requirements to do that. That just were not standard. They weren't an expert who's traveled across the country doing this kind of thing. They were very specific to our community, and the limits to why there's very good reasons often why we can't do it. My fear is we're going to spend $10,000 to have a report that says we should do different things, and then it's going to go to staff, and staff are going to say, well, great, but it's going to cost you $100,000 to do that. I think this whole process, so far outside of the guidance of the people who know what's going on, is just not helpful. I think we either have to just receive this, or we have to take a breath and include some staff in this and have a consideration of what might actually be needed in terms of additional information. And I think going back to that original report, frankly, is a good starting place to go to see where what we can and cannot actually bring forward. That budget for that committee was $0. It was done entirely in-house. We have a Heritage Conservation Area working group, which has 10 members on it, meeting weekly with a team of 3 consultants doing it, and that total budget is $25,000, and that's bringing things to bylaw. So I think it's that there's ways of doing this that do not cost this amount of money. So I just couldn't support the dollar ask.
Thank you. Okay, no one else has got anything to say?
I'll just say one thing. I think your point, Councillor Murdoch, that we work with staff to have input and work with us on this is a good one, and it is part of the scope of work that we've identified here.
Okay, so let me first of all just correct you that I don't sit on this group, so it's not 4, it's 3. But let me put it in a little different context, and the context that I think this should be placed in is not the one that we had when yourself and Councillor Green at that time looked at improvements that we could make. That was very specific, things like electronic agendas, live streaming, very specific recommendations. What's being looked at here is a framework of public consultation that can be used in various situations and determine whether or not certain items that come before us may not be necessary to have public engagement, and there might be some minor issues that should have public engagement, but maybe not the full treatment, and then obviously some situations, which are the larger issues, have the full-on public engagement. I want to draw the example of what happened up in University of Victoria some years ago, where they didn't have a framework for public consultation. And this is what's being proposed here. What happened there was they had a bit of they wanted to build a parking garage. They had a few little meetings. Then they made a decision. Well, the community was up in arms about the nature of that public engagement, to the extent that the University of Victoria not only pulled back on that, but said what we need is a framework of public engagement so that we can then roll out for the appropriate issue. And I can tell you, they spent tens of thousands of dollars developing that framework from my discussions with the president. But once that framework was then done, now they had a kind of a yardstick that they could use where and when they required it. And I understand it has some flexibility. This is what's happening here. It's not specifics. Do we want more live streaming? Do we want improvements to our website, like that committee you were on? And that was a very good committee, ended up with a lot of improvements. This is a much more policy and wider policy. So I think it's a good thing. And it can be tailored to meet necessary issues that come before us. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Murdoch opposed. It passes. Thank you very much. And thanks to the committee for the work you've done. And I appreciate that you're going to wrestle with more issues as it goes forward, but keep up the good work. Thank you. Now we get to the trifecta of community heritage designations and additions. So we start with, and I'm going to ask Ms. Jensen just give us a little bit of an overview, maybe introduce the applicant. And we're going to start at item number 9 in our agenda, which is at 1526 Beach Drive. Ms. Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. This application is to place a heritage designation on the existing home at 1526 Beach Drive and add it to the Oak Bay Community Heritage Register. A statement of significance has been prepared for the home. Built in 1939, the 1.5-story storybook home has a stucco-clad exterior, cross-gabled roof design, recessed entryway, and stone wall in the front. The property is connected with Arthur and Matilda Haynes, who were part of the early social history of Oak Bay. The Heritage Commission considered this application at their February 13th meeting and were supportive of the proposed designation. Bylaw 4708 for the heritage designation is presented for council consideration, and staff are requesting council direction.
And the applicant? Thank you. Thank you very much for coming forward with this. I think we heard Ms. Wilson before about how grateful she was, and I can tell you our community is grateful. It almost feels like it's snowballing. Maybe by the end of the year we'll have half of the community designated. No, well, not quite. That's an exaggeration. But so thank you very much. It's a lovely, lovely home. There's a recommendation for a motion, and then later on we'll do the bylaws. Is that the best way to do it, or to do the bylaws at this point? Mr. Jones?
Your Worship, there is a motion that includes sections A, B, and C, and included in that would be to give first and second reading to the bylaw.
Yeah. So we can do it all in one?
Yes.
Because it's all recommended in one. Okay, so it really is to consider it be added to the community registry. We get first and second reading the designation bylaw, and then we set a hearing, which is going to be on March the 12th, which I hope is convenient. All right, so someone wish to make that motion?
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Discussion.
So is that all three?
It's all three, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Discussion, seeing none?
I'm just going to add that this is very apropos. It's the house here is actually within the proposed heritage conservation area, and really does tie to that history of that area very tightly. So just want to express this is a little different than the other three in the sense that it really actually ties to an application and a process underway. So thank you.
So, yes, thank you. Further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Unanimous? We'll see you on March the 12th. Again, our thanks. Thank you. Clapping permitted. And appropriate. Thank you very much. We move to my neck of the woods, and it's not a conflict because it's not on my block, 1202 Oliver, and I thought I saw the applicant here before. Oh, he left. All right. So we'll provide him with accolades when we next see him, hopefully on March the 12th, This is, I might just have a moment to call up my next report here. Yes, a very similar three-step process. The addition, the bylaws, and then the setting of the motion.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Setting of the public hearing, sorry. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Number 2. Let's see if we can go for the trifecta. 799, even though the owners aren't here, it's certainly worthy of it. It's absolutely a beautiful house. It's in the next block across the street from me. We have the next one at 799 Link Lease. The applicant here on this one. Again, thank you very much. Absolutely wonderful. And I know you've been part of the Heritage Commission and the Heritage community, and this is a legacy gift for which we're grateful. Thank you. And we have, my recollections, let me just pull this up here, slightly different, because it's already on the registry, so we don't have to put it on the registry. So it's just step 2 and 3, which is the first and second reading of the bylaw, and then setting March 12th as the public hearing date, please.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Wonderful addition. Thank you. So next is the Oak Bay Heritage Commission minutes from January the 9th.
Move receipt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Number 13.
Move receipt of the correspondence.
Thank you. And moved, and did I hear a second? Second. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Now, under new business verbal reports, new business. So I'm going to start off with the new business because it is, as I'd referred to earlier, if you just, that I'm going to suggest that a motion be put on the floor that Oak Bay Council and the District of Oak Bay support the application for the 2020 North American Indigenous Games, known as NENSAMAT, to be put forward by the Lekwungen and the city, Lekwungen Nations and the City of Victoria, I think is the appropriate.
So I'll second the motion, or do you want me to make the motion?
If you move it.
I'll move that.
Second. Moved and seconded. This is an
I think it's
absolutely wonderful opportunity. I was there with Chief Sam this morning. He was beaming. He had young athletes who had been in the Indigenous Games before and received medals. You could just see the pride in their hearts, and this has great meaning. That's not to say this is going to be a tough struggle, because there's 3 other really top-notch and much bigger. Halifax is, I don't know how much bigger they are, but Winnipeg's 1 million, Ottawa's over 1 million, and they're going to put a lot of work into this, because this would bring incredible pride to whatever community hosts this. And I know if we don't succeed, I know we will be sending, or the Lekwungen people will be sending athletes, and it really was wonderful to see it in the eyes of the young people today. So. Now, any other comments? I'm going to call. Okay, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to say that I think it's NETSAMAT, not NENSAMAT. It's NET.
NETSAMAT.
NETSAMAT.
Okay.
And also, I wanted to say that I was unable to attend the event today because due to my day job, but I did send my regrets and support to Chief Sam, and I know from a conversation with him last year after returning from the Summer Games in Toronto, I think they were this year, just how excited he was about the idea. And I don't think any other community stands a chance, because we have an unrivaled locale, and no one could deny that. And so I think, given that I hope there will be unanimous support from the region, showing our support to the nations, that that will send a strong message to the committee who chooses the location. So
Certainly, when I was at the reception, there was quite a cross-section of mayors. I didn't count them all, but a collective of mayors is magnificence of mayors, and there was a magnificence of mayors there. All the three largest communities were there, and I think there was at least 4 others, so probably 7 or 8 of us, and it really, that I think again really helped Chief Sam realize that we're behind him. So I think it's great. All right, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. So that's my bit of new business. Any other new business? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
I'm hoping this is the appropriate place to talk about this. I noticed that there was another house that was torn down without a demolition permit, and that would be the second one in less than a month. It was on Prospect Place. I'm wondering how this is possible, especially when in this case the developer would have known the rules. And I'm wondering what fines are in place for this and what sanctions there would be. So I'm wondering, I guess, from staff, what is the cost of a demolition permit? What is the fine for not having a demolition permit? And are there any sanctions? Because I guess my feeling is if there are no sanctions on companies that go ahead and demolish a house without a demolition permit, why not? And is it something that we should be looking at, especially because now we've seen 2 in the last month? So that would be my question.
I'm just going to, and I'm sure Mr. Jones would do this, just a word of caution. I think the generalized questions are fine, but I think the specific questions in relation to this are I think are delicate and are perhaps should not be asked.
I'm not asking for this particular
Good.
incident. I'm
As
just
long as we know
in
that.
general, just in general.
In general,
what the
and that's
fines are.
fine, because I think, we expect enforcement to be done outside at arm's length to council, and at no time should we be seen as trying to influence the staff or enforcement officer, think of them as police almost, to enforce in this direction or that direction. So the general questions, I think, are fine. They're informational questions, and so I'm going to allow you to answer that. Mr. Jones, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Ms. Jensen will correct me when I make a mistake. So the fee for a permit, a demolition permit, is $400. What occurs if someone proceeds in advance of a permit being issued is that fee is doubled, and then we have the ability to issue a fine. That fine is a maximum of $100. There is not really a sanction tool available to the district. There are opportunities should council want, and we've seen this once or twice with tree cutting permits, where you could pursue something in the court. I would advise, though, that that is incredibly expensive, and you would likely not recover by a long shot what it cost you to actually pursue it in the court. So really, from a practical perspective, it's the double permit fees and a fine of $100.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you very much. Councillor Zelka, new business.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, I don't wish to speak directly to this specific issue of this particular house being torn down. I do wish to at least to share a generalized comment, if I may.
Go ahead.
What I wanted to say was that what I'm more concerned about is not necessarily the penalty to any particular developer moving forward, for example, tearing down any particular house without a permit. What I'm more concerned about, especially from a place of policy, is the danger potentially that could be raised with respect to the nearby neighbors. While we're blessed with a wonderful older housing stock and an incredible blessing of heritage, unfortunately those houses were built at a different time when asbestos was considered to be a wonder material. While I do know, amongst other issues, amongst some other issues. And I know built into our demolition permit is notice to the neighbors that within 24 hours this house will be taken down. And that notice is given specifically, not just for asbestos, but for other reasons as well, safety for the children, etc. So I do think it might be appropriate for us to look at a certain, at the appropriate time, at possibly in particular for demolition permits, just because of the concern around safety, that we consider raising the penalty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jones, can you comment?
Not particularly on that, Your Worship. I would like to say, though, when the district was made aware that was occurring, the demolition in advance of the permit, the Building and Planning Department responded incredibly quickly, and the property was secured quickly that same day. So they did a really good job once they were made aware of the problem.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I was almost about to find you out of order there. You were starting to kind of go in on there, but we'll let that one go. All right. Any other new business? Okay, new business. Yep, go ahead, Councillor Kirby, please.
I just wanted, this is a plug for the Oak Bay High school musical. There is, I know that the Oak Bay News has covered it, but I just wanted to remind everybody that you can buy tickets online, which is very easy, by Googling Anything Goes Oak Bay. And the cast apparently is outstanding, and they're all mostly in grade 11, so that means next year's will be even better. But I've heard rave reviews, and it's only on this week, and I think the last show is Saturday night. So try to get tickets if you can. They're only $12 for an adult and $10 for seniors or students.
Thank you very much. No other new business? Okay, I'm going to go to report of Capital Regional District, and there's none. There wasn't a meeting last week. Other verbal reports. You know, one of the things I didn't do at the top, and maybe I should have recognized, and I apologize for doing that, the absolutely great, amazing day that we had, Heritage Day last week, and thanks specifically to our archivist, Carolyn Duncan, and her volunteers. They were on duty all day. They helped set up the displays. Thanks to the Heritage Commission, thanks to the Songhees First Nation. There were so many other contributors that were here. It was quite amazing. And what was particularly striking was the involvement of the Songhees Nation to the extent that they did. They wanted to honor us and be part of it, and they brought what are, I don't know if they're sacred garments, but certainly very special garments, and they had to get special permission from the chief to take them out of the First Nations property, and she went to the trouble of doing that. She gave an incredibly wonderful First Nations welcome that brought tears to the eyes of many, including me, because we know what their background has been, and we know what we have to do to walk together with them ahead. And the amount of effort that they put in, and all the volunteers, it certainly made me extremely proud to proclaim the day, Heritage Day, and to be part of a community that's so caring about their heritage, about First Nations. So can we put that in my remarks as if I said it right off the top? Because I meant to. Anyways. Okay, so thanks for that. That's our other verbal report. Any other verbal reports? Okay, go ahead, please, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. Just a reminder that the Yes Awards, we have now chosen a date for the Yes Awards, which is May 3rd, and the deadline for nominations coming in from the public will be April 9th. And just a reminder that these awards recognize the accomplishments of youth from grades 6 to 10 who attend an Oak Bay school or have an Oak Bay address. And we look forward to nominations from the public as well as the teachers in the schools, and they should be able to find that nomination form online. And then one other...
Just before you go on.
Yes.
Will you be tweeting out a poster or
I will
notice?
Absolutely do that.
Because then that's often a good way to kind of make people aware of the nominations process and deadlines.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Because it's in a great award system. Thank you. Go ahead.
And then also, I just want to kind of give you a heads up that there's a possibility that we will be bringing the snowbirds to Oak Bay in August. And I'm not talking about the people who go down to the States for the winter and come back. I'm actually talking about the planes, and we're in conversation with them right now to bring them to Oak Bay, perhaps for one-day-only show around August 9th, I think. So stay tuned for more information on that.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other new business? Councillor Murdoch, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess in the Lekwungen theme, for the library board, the new library branch downtown is being named the, I can try and do this one, Shuang Huang Tangu, which is the Lekwungen name for James Bay. It's actually called that James Bay branch, so technically it's James Bay branch, but we'll just leave that alone. It's anyway, so it's opening in the springtime, and there'll be a grand opening, and I'll make sure everybody gets invites to that. And I should just recognize the fact that once again, the library is doing remarkable things of opening that, providing those services, and the operational cost of the organization is staying static. They're finding ways of doing that within the structure and with partnerships and so forth. So it's really quite fantastic. Also with the library, there's a whole new French language collection thanks to the funding for the province and the federal government. So that's now available. An update on the Heritage Conservation Area Working Group. As I mentioned, I think earlier, that group is meeting weekly right now. The consultants are running around like crazy trying to keep up with all the things you want to do. Most importantly today, I have the dates, which is that we're looking at March 8th to have 2 sessions. This will be a preliminary input session, so the statement of significance is done for the area. So we're going to be taking that and mapping it to, options for design criteria and ways of addressing the community. So March 8th, we're going to have 1 session in the afternoon, 1 session in the evening. They're the same, just having 2 sessions, so people who can make it in the daytime and make it in the evening can come. And we'll be seeking input at that point. There won't be firm designs or anything else, just really an input session. But please put it in your calendars. And in fact, maybe I'll go to
what
Mr.
times are they?
Yeah, Mr. Jones, I can't remember the exact times. Was it 3:30 to 5 and 5:30 to 7? Is that what we had?
That's correct.
Okay.
Sorry, say that again?
3:30 to 5 and 5:30 to 7, and they'll be held here in the chambers.
Okay. Thank you.
And I should also just acknowledge that the consultant Heritage Works are really being very responsive and so far. So we're getting through this as quick as we can. Although very carefully. The Heritage Commission Foundation Archives, you spoke to the event, of course. I just wanted to point out that a couple things I think you skipped. One was just the success of the Heritage Walks. There was 2 walks arranged that day. Both were sold out to the max, and then a bunch of people tagged along anyway. And also, I don't know if you mentioned her, but from Songhees, but Florence Dick was the person who came, and she really dedicated her whole day there to participate, and really had some very positive feedback about the event. So. And of course, Heritage also has a Heritage Talk this Wednesday, March 7th. So that's really on the history of Oak Bay and Victoria from 1893 to 1963. That's taken from the memoirs of former Reeve George Murdoch. And it's entitled Nitwits, Touts, and Oak Bay Council. And not this council, other old councils, a long time ago. And it starts at 7 p.m. on March 7th. So that's my update.
Well, I'll be there to make sure that it doesn't refer to this council. Thank you. Councillor Kirby, please.
I just wanted to follow up on your comments about the name for the new James Bay branch. There's an online resource that the City of Victoria councillors posted that helps you with the pronunciation, so you can.
How do you think I did that?
Just in case you didn't get it, there's an online tool. So if anybody else wants to see it, it's really a neat thing to hear because it's very difficult to pronounce.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, I'm going to move on from item 14 to item 15, which is our schedule for the Estimates Committee, which are all open to the public, April 4th, 5:30, April 5th, 5:30, and April 12th, 5:30.
So moved?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Heritage alteration permit with respect to the 960 Foul Bay. Just explain this, how this fits in, Ms. Jensen, to what we did earlier.
Certainly, the easiest way to think about it is that the revitalization agreement is really the agreement between council and the property owner to say this is the work that's going to be done. The heritage alteration permit, which is now affecting heritage designated property, is now saying, yes, go ahead and do these works. So you have the authorization to do it.
Okay, So it's just a step in the process.
So I move the council approve the heritage alteration permit HAP 10 with respect to 960 Foul Bay Road.
Second.
Moved and second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. We have Councillor Zelka's revised motion with respect to steep slope hazards. And Councillor Zelka and I spoke before. This essentially, if it passes, will go through our protocol system with staff looking at it. I think we're all aware of that. Thank you. Councillor Zelka, do you wish to move this then formally?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. If I may?
Yes, please.
Whereas concern has been raised.
I think you can just move the resolution.
Well, I assume everyone in the room then has read it. There's a couple of whereas clauses, in particular relating to the lot line excavations that were the issues that were raised, and that public participation was brought forward by Marion Cummings. Therefore, be it resolved, is the essence of the motion, that staff be asked to provide council information on current policy having to do in particular with the minimizing hazards related to steep slopes, and provide any recommended measures to reduce or mitigate dangers potentially created by tree cutting or development on steep slopes. And I'd like to move that motion, please.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. You want to start off, Councillor Zelka?
Yes, thank you very much. We've had some absolutely very eloquent members of the public come forward on a number of recent developments, and I think 207 Sunny Lane and King George Terrace, amongst others, and a few others scattered throughout the communities that I've noticed over the years. And the general relationship that many of them have is this lot line to lot line excavation. I first started noticing them for myself on more level lots, where literally the properties next door, their hedges would fall in and their sidewalks would fall in, and trees would be falling into this lot that had been excavated right to the lot line. And and here I am as a councillor wondering, like, how can we let this go forward? This doesn't make any sense, as literally any setback of houses next door are now falling into this lot. So that sort of started to raise my awareness to this issue. And then when I saw it starting to happen on steep slopes, then just alarm bells went off for me personally. I was very pleased to see that the Local Government Act has a number of provisions to assist local government with situations such as this, and I included, as background material, appended to the end of this motion, the Section 500 of the Local Government Act that speaks specifically to specialized tree cutting permits that are in relation to areas affected by flooding, landslip, avalanche, et cetera, and any particular areas that we're allowed to put further controls on to maintain the stability of the lands. And I was very pleased to see that the Local Government Act is enabling us to pass further regulations in that area. You'll also notice further along in the background material, Saanage's steep slope regulations. They actually place those regulations within their tree protection bylaw, but what I find it interesting is that while we have our tree protection bylaw focused specifically on size of trees, and any tree that's less than a certain size is excluded, in this case, those restrictions are not there. It seems to be that it's more of a geographic based, and really what the intention is to keep those roots in place to try and maintain the stability of the lands. And I would hope that staff has the opportunity to share with us at the appropriate time, hopefully sooner instead of later, what our current policy is, because I'm really not sure whether we actually have a specific written policy in this area or not. And then I would also love to hear if there's any recommendations that need to be brought forward with respect to how we can improve the safety, or I think it's referred to in the legislation as to minimizing the creation of a danger. That's the legal terminology they use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And realizing that that first report that they bring back will not address those issues, but they'll address the workload / priorities issues. Anyone else want to speak to this? Go ahead, Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka, and I just about a couple quick things. And obviously, we're trying to always find a balance between the private property rights versus the, the protection of the pieces. One piece that didn't make it in here was sort of the preamble to the part you mentioned about existing trees and vegetation and so forth. And I think it's really great wording, and I think it's good to remind ourselves, if people are doing any development in a development permit area, they're asked, part of the guidelines for that is to retain and conserve as much natural vegetation, rock outcrops, existing hydrology, and unique site features as possible. And that's obviously there to kind of allow developments to be built into these. And I think that's a real characteristic of Oak Bay that we take for granted. If you go out to some of the western communities where there's sort of tiers cut into the side of the mountains and houses build up, but it changes the nature of the community quite a lot. So we haven't had that issue in Oak Bay in the past, but I think certainly we're starting to see it a little bit now. So I think it's just a worthwhile time for us to consider our policies around that. So thanks for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor Zelka, for bringing this to Council's attention. We move on to 19 is a memo to us about what follows. 20 is an adoption of the annual indemnity bylaw, which had to be tweaked, and then now it's for adoption. Councillor, you've been talking so much tonight, Mr. Jones. I'm starting to think of you as a councillor.
I've only just begun.
But you know what you could do? So you could run and be the returning officer in October. Imagine that.
No, thank you. Just for the record, we should have a resolution with respect to the secondary suites, just postponing that to the next meeting.
Okay, very good. Sorry, you're right. I skipped over that. So a motion to defer that to March the 6th, please.
So moved? March the 12th, isn't it?
March the 12th. Good, we got that clarified. Yeah, I think Councillor will be back sometime in the 10th or 9th. Okay, discussion? Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just was wondering, is the name of this motion secondary suite implantation in Oak Bay? Yes or no? Thank you.
Okay, well, this is a deferral motion, so I'm just going to take that under advisement. Now, any other comments? It's up to the person who draws it to choose language. Okay, no other comments? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. It's deferred to March the 12th. Thank you. Now, skip 19. Go on to, we have the Mayor's Council Annual Indemnity, which I was almost about to come to. So, for adoption, please.
Move adoption.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And if I'm not mistaken, that takes us right to the end of the...
Move adjournment. Second.
Yeah, thank you very much. Boy, we did an awful lot in 2 hours. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.